Monday evening. We've been pretty lucky so far on this Monday, with the exception of the wee hours of last night to the start of this morning. We've not really seen anything severe, but a lot of those storms to our south and west getting a little closer to parts of our viewing area. So that's why I wanted to hop on, kind of give folks a little bit of an update as to the potential of some stronger storms. So right now, the at least western half of the extreme western half of Richland County kind of under that polygon right now for a severe thunderstorm warning, and that does include parts of Huron County. That's really the only warning in the News 5 viewing area so far this evening, which is excellent news. We've not seen much of anything as far as severe weather outside of the extreme western half of Ohio so far this evening. So Greater Cleveland, Akron, Canton, Dover, New Philly on the quiet side for the moment, and most of these storms kind of moving from northwest to southeast. That's kind of the axis of the most unstable part of the atmosphere here in Ohio, and most of that will continue to at least stay towards our western communities. So a little bit more potential of maybe some stronger storms in and around the Mansfield area, perhaps into parts of Holmes County, and also maybe into parts of Huron and Erie County as well, where that potential of a little bit more stronger storms continues to be in place, as we do have a severe thunderstorm watch in place for our western communities going back at least a couple of hours. That was issued earlier this evening, and that will go through about 2 a.m. So another about 2.5 hours before hopefully we can say goodbye to this severe thunderstorm watch. So not completely, at least inundation of severe weather here in northeast Ohio, but still a chance for a couple of stronger storms in and around our western communities especially. So that severe thunderstorm warning, now just issued for Huron and also into Richland and Ashland County. Actually got upgraded to that severe thunderstorm warning within the last couple of minutes, and that will go through about 12:30 this evening. Looks to be more strong winds and definitely some very, very heavy rain with a lot of these, at least storms across western Ohio, as the atmosphere is very, very at least saturated with a lot of moisture as we get into the end of the evening and into the wee hours of tomorrow morning. So yeah, the potential is there for a little bit more of a stronger storm around the Mansfield area, southern parts of Norwalk, into Ashland, and maybe even southwestern parts of Lorain County as this storm continues to march a little bit further eastward, only about 25 to nearly 30 miles per hour. So we've been actually pretty slow moving with a lot of these storms. In fact, when they were in Indiana, they were going about 10 to 15 miles per hour. So a very slow marching thunderstorm complex as we get into the latter half of this Monday night. But once we get into the 2 and 3 o'clock hour, I think most, if not all of the region, completely at least severe free for the rest of the overnight hours. So still a chance for a couple of stronger storms late this evening. And a lot of the flooding concern, unfortunately, still there. Flash flood warnings just outside of the Zanesville area towards Perry and Morgan County, where they've been inundated for at least the last couple of hours. And I would not be surprised to maybe see a few more flood advisories and or maybe even some flood warnings. We have a flash flood warning just outside of our viewing area as well to the south and east of Lima and Findlay. So heavy rain is going to be a big problem for the next several hours with these at least slow-moving systems here in most of northeast Ohio. So right now, just a couple of warnings gradually popping back in around the Mansfield area under that severe thunderstorm warning. Kind of take a look at the velocity. I'm not showing a lot of strong winds, but the National Weather Service is definitely issuing that warning right now. So let's take a look here. So let's see what they got going. Severe thunderstorm warning issued for Huron, Richland County until about 12:30, and we're looking at that potential for some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts as this storm is picking up speed at about 40 miles per hour. So the main threat for this at least line will be those stronger winds as they do move further into at least Richland County and perhaps even into Ashland County between now and about 12:30. So a little less than an hour for some of those at least stronger wind gusts, along with some very, very heavy rains with a lot of these storms that are slowly making their way into parts of northeast Ohio. And the rain, and I'm certain a lot of lightning, is going to be a big issue. Still well over 300 strikes within this little frame right now, from Sandusky to Fremont down to Bucyrus, Shelby, Mansfield, and certainly in through parts of Ashland County. Going to be maybe hearing some thunder within the next half hour to 45 minutes or so. So this is kind of the only big concern we have late this evening. So that is certainly some good news, as the atmosphere could have been very, very more, at least forthcoming with storms during the majority of the day today. And a lot of that rain is going to continue, at least staying mostly off towards our south and west for the time being. But those storms are kind of a little bit more feisty, south and west of the I-71 corridor. Let's see, my computer is not wanting to work. There we go. Okay. So we've got some of those thunderstorms kind of making their way back into Mansfield right now. Bucyrus, probably a good light show right now with some very heavy downpours for the evening hours as we get closer and closer to midnight. Hopefully that will start to move out of the Bucyrus area and into at least the eastern half of Crawford County, if I remember correctly. Yes. Okay, so that one goes through about midnight tonight. And then the new one that goes into Richland and Ashland County, that one goes through about 12:30, as these storms are still packing a bit of a punch with some maybe 60-mile-per-hour winds as we get into the latter half of the evening hours, and definitely some very heavy rain going to be a big concern as well. So the threat for a little bit of at least those showers and storms in our western communities right now going to be the biggest concern as we get into the end of this evening. As far as other cities, Robin, Mentor, I think we'll see some rain. I don't necessarily see a lot of severe weather, so the further north of the I-77, or for that matter, Medina County points north and east, a little bit less of a chance of seeing those severe storms, but still at least some rain in the cards for the overnight tonight, with maybe some rumbles of thunder as well. So a little bit more in the way of those showers and storms continuing to stick around for the overnight tonight into the wee hours of tomorrow morning. So Akron and Barberton, probably a little bit more of that heavy rain once again. Hopefully we'll get a lot of these storms to be a little bit more relaxed and not as quite as severe as they are currently. So we'll keep a very close eye. We'll be on as long as we need to. Meteorologist Trent McGill will be here about 2, 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we'll continue to keep an eye on things for you throughout the overnight tonight, making sure everybody's safe. We want to continue to keep that as our #1 focus. And a lot of these storms have been kind of staying well to our south and west, so we really not had anything to worry about. I know a lot of folks heading down to downtown Cleveland for the Foo Fighters. I think that concert went off without any problems, which was definitely some good news, as we were having some worries at that potential of some stronger storms for the end of this evening. Jessica, you were very, very welcome. We are definitely going to be here for the rest of the evening if need be. Sandusky into North Olmsted. Potential for those storms to kind of move a little bit further south. So let's put at least a track on this for the last, let's say about 3 hours or so. Let's see if we got any new warnings here. Always going to keep an eye on things here. Yep, so that severe thunderstorm warning is the only new information that I'm seeing right now. So let's put about 3 hours worth of track on this. You can kind of see most of that action moving a little bit east and slightly southeast. So a lot of it is continuing to move basically along the southern half of the viewing area over the last couple of hours. But there is some indication of movement a little bit further northward. So we'll hopefully get a little bit more rain rather than actually severe weather from some of these, at least thunderstorms, as the atmosphere has certainly been worked over a lot more within the last 24 hours, at least here in Cleveland, with the morning severe weather, and hopefully a little bit more in the way of calming these storms down as we get into the evening hours. So you can kind of see the push a little bit further north and eastward within the last couple of frames there as we get closer and closer to 10:30, 11 o'clock. So I think we'll see some rain from a lot of these storms, but hopefully the winds will not be nearly as potent as they are currently with those couple of severe thunderstorm warnings for Richland, also into southern Huron County, and that does include Ashland County through about 12:30 tomorrow morning. So a lot of those raindrops kind of making more of an impact rather than the actual stronger wind gusts as we get into the second half of this evening. So a lot of those storms westward definitely showing indication of, unfortunately, some flooding issues as we get into the end of the evening hours. Westlake, Weather Channel radar is showing some severe weather around 1:30. It is a possibility of some stronger storms. I think a lot of the thunderstorms will begin to weaken a lot more as we get past midnight into the 1 and 2 o'clock hour, but still some potential for some heavy rain. So I think flooding is going to be a big concern for some areas, and a little bit more, maybe some gusty winds at times across parts of our western communities. But the further north and east you get towards Ashtabula, Geauga County Lake, even into Portage and most of Summit, I think will squeak out mostly below severe limits as we get into the latter half of this evening. But still potential for some very heavy rain and probably some lightning, unfortunately, for the overnight hours. So hopefully a lot of the little ones, my little one included, hopefully he'll be able to sleep through the night if we do see any of those, at least rumbles of thunder moving into parts of the I-77 corridor. But a lot of the rain is just kind of making more of a presence felt as we get into the latter half of this evening. We've got a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings. The one I mentioned earlier, one towards the south in just north of Columbus, and then there's this one just to the west of Toledo. So there's not a lot of widespread severe weather by any stretch, up one right around Wheeling, West Virginia as well. So at least the severe potential kind of going down a little bit as we get closer and closer to midnight and beyond, but we'll hopefully not see too much more of it for the rest of the overnight hours. But the rain, I think, will definitely be a big concern for the overnight tonight. So the dark red marks, those are flash flood warnings. So those areas that have seen well over several inches of rain just to the south of Zanesville, and there's also one just around the Lima area. So those are flash flood warnings. So we'll maybe see a couple more of those popping back in for the latter half of the evening into the overnight tonight. So hopefully a lot of that will be at least quieting down for the overnight hours into the day tomorrow. So right now we're still dealing with this one severe thunderstorm warning for Richland County through about 12:30 tonight, early tomorrow morning, I should say, as we get closer and closer to midnight. And there's a little bit more of a stronger wind out there, potentially up to about 50, maybe 60 miles per hour. But that looks to be the worst of this storm, as we've seen a lot more rain with this storm than anything as we get into the evening hours and into the overnight tonight. Toledo, potential still is out there for some of those storms. You have one severe thunderstorm warning just to your west, so the threat will be kind of there for a little bit longer. I think once you get past about 1 a.m., I think most of Toledo is kind of in the clear completely, as the Storm Prediction Center will probably take away that at least watch box for most of northwestern Ohio as we get into the latter half of this evening. Larry, Stark County, potential for a little bit of those stronger storms, I think, might be a possibility. But I think a lot of it is going to be rain. So we're looking at a lot of these storms fading as we get closer and closer to 1, 2 a.m., but there's still some rain, some lightning, and perhaps some stronger wind gusts a possibility. So this storm not really showing a lot of darker colors. We've seen some at least lighter oranges and those at least yellows kind of popping back in. So if we go back a few frames now, that storm was looking a lot healthier within the last hour or so. You can kind of see some of those purples with that storm, but things are starting to lessen as far as the at least intensity with some of these storms around the Mansfield area. So that is at least some indication of some quieter weather slowly starting to approach from the west. So hopefully the potential will be going down as far as any wind or at least severe weather, but I think the rain is still going to be at least a big concern for the latter half of this evening. Probably not seeing severe weather necessarily making it all the way to Akron. Heavy rain, I think, will definitely make a good appearance across most of the viewing area for the latter half of this evening into the wee hours of tomorrow morning. But models, they've really not been doing a great job, so I'm kind of taking them with a grain of salt. But the latest one kind of shows a lot of this out of here once we get to about 2, 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. So a lot of those, at least models, are kind of indicating some quieter weather after we get through the second half of this evening. Not so quiet right now in Norwalk. We got lots and lots of at least lightning going on. So yeah, would not be surprised to maybe hear a few more rumbles of thunder around the Norwalk area for sure, as the lightning is probably going to be a little bit more intense. Let's take a look at some of those lightning counts. Over about 174, and as we get further and further out, still well over 600 to 700 lightning strikes, and that's actually kind of gone down a little bit, as we were well over 1,000 about an hour ago with some of these storms. But the good news is we're going to see a lot less in the way of severe weather once we get past midnight tonight, and still a little more heavy rain is going to be the big concern for the end of this day into the overnight tonight. Yeah, the models, they're not really doing a great job. A lot of unstable atmosphere as we get into the latter half of this evening, but most of the severe weather kind of remaining towards the south and west along the at least the biggest axis of the strongest instability. So yeah, those at least models, they've been kind of at least doing some good work at times, but they've really not been showing a great at least aspect of the atmosphere by any stretch. And this is a very difficult situation to kind of at least forecast for with these thunderstorms, because we kind of have a little bit of a scenario where we have one boundary kind of draped across the southern Great Lakes, and where storms kind of fire up is where we are seeing those at least severe potentials. but a lot of the area has not really seen a lot of severe weather since at least early this morning, which we potentially could have seen. So we needed something to kind of spark these storms. And normally a front will do at least some of that work, but also the potential for some upper level disturbances kicking up some of those storms late last night into the wee hours of this morning. So we're not looking at a lot of that potential, despite the models kind of showing some of that so far during the majority of the day today. So lightning and definitely some heavy rain still continues for this, at least a warning right now around Mansfield into central Ashland County just south of Sandusky. So a lot of this is, I think, going to continue to weaken a little bit more over the next few hours. So the further east you are, you might be hearing some rumbles of thunder by far as we get into the end of the overnight tonight. Things will start to quiet down a little bit more. Let's see here, Mansfield. Let's see here, we're looking at those at least severe thunderstorm warnings for most of Richland County until about 12:30. So we've got another about a half an hour until that at least warning is set to expire, as these thunderstorms still packing a bit of a punch. As far as the wind, that is going to be the biggest concern right now. Let's kind of take a sample on some of these wind gusts. Yeah, we're back up to about 50 miles an hour in and around Mansfield, just north of Shiloh, maybe closer to 60. So yeah, there's still some oomph with this thunderstorm across parts of at least Richland County. So yeah, we're definitely indicating a little bit more of those maybe stronger winds closer to 60, which is pretty much where we should be for a severe thunderstorm warning. So yeah, definitely some warranted warnings across Mansfield up to Shiloh, Willard, and we're definitely going to see a potential continuing into Ashland County within the next 20 or so minutes. So potential for some stronger winds moving into Ashland County, around Savannah, up towards New London. So the winds, I think, will be the primary concern from this thunderstorm as we get into the end of this afternoon, into the end of this evening, into the overnight tonight. So let's see here. Worcester potentially could be looking at some heavier downpours throughout the next couple of hours. So let's take a look at where we're looking at here. So the storm itself is kind of moving a little bit further north and eastward, and here's Worcester. So I think we'll see some heavier rains as this storm continues to move further eastward, but I can't rule out a little bit more lightning and maybe some stronger winds kind of lingering, but most of the at least thunderstorm activity will start to get a little bit lower and lower as we get after midnight through the wee hours of tomorrow morning. So let's see here. Lake County early tomorrow, and we'll be talking at least a little bit of rain late tonight. So as far as tomorrow is concerned, we'll look at a little bit more rain and more severe potential once again, but not necessarily going to be a widespread severe event, as the Storm Prediction Center putting parts of northeast Ohio under that 1 out of 5 risk here in greater Cleveland and most of the News 5 viewing area. The biggest concern right now is going to be from northern Illinois around Chicago down to Indianapolis and southwestern Ohio, that 3 out of 5 ranking for severe storms once again tomorrow. So the threat will actually be a little bit further south and west, and this is going to be the biggest concern, I think, of the week, actually, for severe weather here in the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley before things start to at least quiet down, hopefully by the middle of this week. So the threat for some strong severe storms still in the cards over the next 24 hours, and here's what our models are kind of showing. So it's doing a decent job. It's showing some storms moving back into most of the region between now and about 12:30 tomorrow morning, but I think a lot of it will continue to weaken as it gets closer and closer to I-77. And once we get into the latter half of the 2 and 3 o'clock hour, I think most of us will start to dry out, maybe still a few more lingering showers, a few more rumbles of thunder once we get to the second half of the overnight tonight. And then by tomorrow morning, most areas just looking at some cloud cover, but this is also kind of indicating some more showers and thunderstorms by 8, 9 o'clock in many areas. So we'll have to keep a very close eye on this as we get to the second half of the morning tomorrow, as the threat will be unfortunately there for the start of the day tomorrow, if you can kind of at least see some of the thunderstorms developing towards the north and west. So we'll certainly keep an eye on things late tonight and early tomorrow morning. This will be one of maybe 2 rounds yet again of some stronger storms throughout the second half of your Tuesday morning, and then by the end of your Tuesday evening, the potential will kind of be there once again but it's all going to be kind of on the at least fly. So we'll be potentially tracking some storms tomorrow morning, but I think we'll also see some storms during the afternoon. So we're going to have to be kind of a little more vigilant in keeping weather aware for these thunderstorms, as the forecast is not a slam dunk, unfortunately. So we have to really pay attention to what the weather is kind of doing in real time, rather than kind of seeing this a few hours ahead of time, as we normally do with severe weather. So we'll have to keep a very close eye on a lot of the weather late tonight and early tomorrow morning, especially the further west into Indiana and Illinois, and seeing if those thunderstorms do begin to arrive in the latter half of the overnight tonight. So let's kind of take a look at what we're looking at further north and west. And there's not a lot going on the further north and west of Ohio. So I think a little bit more of some quieter weather will start to move back in, despite the models showing more storms to start off the day tomorrow. So we'll have to keep an eye on things early in the day to see if any more storms kind of start to fire up across parts of Milwaukee down to Chicago, even into northern Indiana and Michigan, before we can actually see a lot of that threat returning. But I think by tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, the threat will definitely be increasing once again, as that front kind of drops a little bit further south into parts of northeast Ohio for the end of the afternoon and early evening tomorrow. So I think tomorrow evening and tomorrow night probably going to be at least a bigger concern for those strong to severe storms for the day on Tuesday. So we'll have to keep a close eye on things, as I mentioned. So let's get back to looking at some of those storms currently here in northeast Ohio. Let's see here. Yep, there we go. Looking at the storms currently in place, we do have another thunderstorm warning for Erie County, and that goes to about 12:30 as well, with these thunderstorms slowly making their way north and eastward into parts of our viewing area right now. Let's check on some of the updates on the warnings. Let's see if we got any new information right now. All right. Okay, so we got that severe thunderstorm warning just issued for at least the next half hour in through parts of Huron County. So we have a little bit more of those stronger winds. Still the biggest concern, at about 60 miles per hour throughout the next half hour, 45 minutes. So Sandusky down to Willard into Mansfield, the threat for a little bit more of those stronger wind gusts will be a possibility. And then once we get into the latter half of the 12 o'clock hour, hopefully we won't be talking too much more of those severe warnings here in most of northeast Ohio. Just a little bit more steady rain for the overnight into the day tomorrow. Not in Old Brooklyn just yet. Yeah, it's going to be probably at least another couple hours before we start to see some of that rain returning to parts of greater Cleveland. So the threat will be increasing for rain in and around northeast Ohio. So the model's not really doing a great job on timing. It does show a decent amount of coverage with these storms right now, but a lot of the rain is kind of staying to the south and west for the time being in around greater Cleveland, probably at least between now and about 2 a.m. So that threat for at least a little bit more heavy rain. For Euclid, I think will also be in that potential for some heavier downpours once we get into the second half of the evening by about 1, 2 o'clock tomorrow morning, or now today actually. Today's Tuesday, as we are past midnight, and I think the threat will be increasing around the Euclid area, Mentor towards Solon, down to Bath, Strongsville. We'll hopefully not see much more of these severe thunderstorms starting to make their way into greater Cleveland for the end of the evening. Thunder and lightning in West Salem, yep. Would not doubt that for a second. A lot of the instability really causing the lightning to really just explode over the last several hours, and there has been a lot of lightning with these storms for the last several hours. But once we get into the next 2 hours, I think a lot of the lightning will subside a bit, as we're not looking at nearly as much behind the main line towards the Marion area and Findlay. So that is certainly some good news with the at least folks hopefully trying to get to sleep late this evening into the overnight tonight. As far as Streetsboro, yeah, no rain so far this evening, but I think we'll start to see a little bit more of it once we get past 12, 1 o'clock tomorrow or today. The threat for a little bit more of that rain moves into the I-77 corridor. But as far as severe weather, the trend will be going down, thankfully, for the second half of the 12 o'clock hour. So we still have one warning for Ashland and Richland County right now. That does include now the Norwalk area up towards Sandusky for at least some stronger winds and definitely some very heavy rains in the near future, with a lot of these at least thunderstorms here in most of northeast Ohio. Amherst is probably going to be looking at some more rain depending on exactly how this storm evolves we'll hopefully not see the extension of the severe thunderstorm warning. So definitely want to at least keep aware. If your basement maybe floods on a regular basis, you may want to keep track of that, as this heavy rain will continue to move into Lorain County over the next hour or so, with a little bit more of that lightning. But towards the south and west of that, things are beginning to quiet down a little bit. So we'll probably get through in about another hour of some decent lightning here into most of the area, with these storms moving into the northeastern half of the state. Youngstown getting a little bit further eastward. I think we'll see some rain. Severe threat kind of minimal, thankfully, for the Youngstown area. So the closer you are to Youngstown, Ashtabula, even into Akron and Canton, I think a little bit less of a chance of seeing those strong to severe storms. But I think some heavy rain will be a big concern for the latter half of the overnight tonight into the wee hours of tomorrow morning. So the threat for at least a little bit more heavy rain will be continuing to be a big problem. Brunswick, probably within the next 45 minutes to about an hour, with some of these storms moving in from the south and southwest. I think the at least thunderstorm potential will begin to weaken a little bit, so we will hopefully not see much in the way of lightning as we get closer and closer to Medina towards the north and east, but still some threats of at least some heavier rain will be a good possibility for the overnight tonight. Yeah, heavy rain. Very, very, at least good possibility. Pulling off to the side of the road, definitely a good bet with some of these heavy rains. Maybe getting into a restaurant parking lot might not be a bad idea. So if you're going to be at least traveling late this evening between now and about 2, maybe 3 in the morning, you may want to give yourself a little bit of extra time, as the heavy rain could potentially slow your commute into work very early in the morning. So a lot of these rain, at least potentials, will be heavy at times here at most of Northeast Ohio. Let's see here. Mayfield Heights, yeah, the threat for a little bit of rain, and definitely maybe some heavy rain at times as these storms are slowly making their way into the area. I don't think we'll see a lot of severe weather once we get past this warning. So between now and about 1 a.m., I think a lot of the severe weather will pretty much be over with for most of our western communities, as that severe thunderstorm watch will hopefully expire at about 2 a.m. at the very latest. They might actually let it go closer to 1, as long as these storms kind of get out of that area. So the potential for severe weather will start to wane a little bit towards the end of the at least 1 o'clock hour into the overnight tonight. Sandusky probably getting a lot of that rain late right now, and certainly some very heavy rains will be a continuing factor for a lot of the area, which we've seen a lot of heavy rain, unfortunately, in the last couple of weeks in pockets. I know a lot of folks out there asking, hey, I've seen rain in other parts. When am I actually going to see those rain showers, as my garden, my lawn has not seen anything for weeks? And yeah, unfortunately, this time of the year, what Mother Nature wants to do is what she wants to do. So yeah, pockets of heavy, steady rain, a good possibility in some areas tonight, but there will be that potential for some areas to maybe not even see much of anything for the end of the overnight tonight into the day tomorrow. Downtown Cleveland, probably between now and about 1, maybe 1:30, we'll start to see some of these raindrops. Heavy at times, but I don't think we'll see a lot of severe potential once we get past 1 a.m. So we'll start to see a little bit less in the way of severe potential, but the flooding, I think, will still maybe be an issue even into the second half of the 1 o'clock hour till about maybe 3 before things really start to quiet down for the second half of the overnight tonight into the day tomorrow. So a lot of these, at least thunderstorms, starting to at least lose their punch. Late this evening, there's only that one severe thunderstorm warning right now across parts of our western communities, and that one still pesky around Lucas County until about 12:45. So we've got about another half hour, 45 minutes. Hopefully we'll be able to say goodbye to a lot of these severe potentials across the western half of our viewing area, which actually I'm kind of surprised it's been this late before we actually do see severe thunderstorm warnings, as we've not seen a lot, thankfully, during the majority of the day today, as a lot of these storms have been pretty much non-existent since early this morning. Lynn, as far as timing in Akron and Canton, I think within the next couple of hours we'll start to see some rain, not necessarily a lot of severe weather. Maybe some rumbles of thunder out there, but a lot of the winds and at least thunderstorm activity will hopefully start to go down a little bit as it does move further eastward. So I think we'll transition more from a wind event to maybe some more flooding concerns. So between now and about 3 a.m., we'll be talking some very heavy rains with a lot of that storm action moving further east into I-77. So a lot of those, at least rain chances, will be at least a little bit more heavy between now and at least early tomorrow morning. Tornado chances tomorrow. Yeah, they're not completely zero, but they're not at least a guarantee by any stretch. So we'll be keeping a close eye on it. I think the further south and west of the Route 30 corridor, at least the chance will be there. We'll have to keep an eye on things and continue to watch as these storms continue to develop as we get into the end of the evening into the overnight on Tuesday. But right now we've got a few thunderstorms to kind of worry about. Some very heavy rains are causing a lot of flooding concerns. Let's take a look at any new information from the National Weather Service right now. Let's kind of check in with them. See here, we have a flash flood warning. Okay, that's outside of our area. Let's see here. So, oops. Okay, no new information just yet, which is certainly some good news. But we do have a lot of those flooding concerns towards the south. A lot of those darker red polygons are indication of flash flood warnings where several inches of rain have fallen very, very quickly. So the further south you are of at least the Route 30 corridor, we've got a couple of at least flash flood warnings around the I-70 corridor, around Coshocton, Zanesville, and especially Morgan and Perry County has just been inundated for hours with very heavy and steady rain. And we're talking still a little bit more flooding concern with some advisories around the Findlay area, that kind of cyan color, and then a flash flood warning just to the south of Lima as well. So flooding, I think, is going to be actually a bigger threat for the second half of the overnight tonight into the wee hours of tomorrow morning here in most of northeast Ohio. West side of Cleveland, the potential is there for some heavy rain. Not a lot of confidence in the severe weather criteria continuing to move further northward as these storms are kind of starting to fall apart a little bit. I think the rain will be the biggest concern as these storms move further and further closer to downtown Cleveland, but we still have that one warning for the at least Norwalk area down to Ashland for at least the next half hour. Mansfield, you're pretty much just looking at some heavy, steady rain, so you're in the clear for severe weather. Shelby the same towards Bucyrus, so a lot of the rain is going to be the bigger aspect of at least a worry for the overnight tonight through the morning tomorrow. So a lot of these storms kind of starting to lose their punch with regards to stronger winds, but we still have that one warning until about 12:30 for parts of Ashland County, just to the north and east of most of Mansfield, still under that warning, but not a lot of confidence in this continuing to be a big problem for the end of the overnight tonight through the morning tomorrow. But we'll still have to keep an eye on things as the forecast is going to be kind of one of those evolving forecasts, unfortunately, here in northeast Ohio tomorrow especially. So let's kind of take a look at some of those velocities. Ashland's starting to pick up a little bit more intensity right now with some of those stronger winds. Let's see here. Let's see. Continues the severe thunderstorm warning for southeastern Erie and Ashland County. So that's definitely worth the severe thunderstorm warning right now. Central parts of Ashland County, 64-mile-per-hour winds estimated from the power of 5 right now. So, yeah, that is definitely a very potent line of wind with pockets over 60 miles an hour right now. So definitely going to be a little bit more of a concern. There could be some power outages with some of those at least stronger winds late this evening. Okay, let's see here. So the severe thunderstorm warning is canceled for central Seneca and northwestern Crawford. That is some good news there. But still Sandusky itself and also into Ashland County. That potential for some stronger winds will be at least continuing for the next 20 or so minutes. So right now we're still looking at some stronger winds in central Ashland County, just around downtown, in fact, just south of Savannah. But the further north you are, a little bit less than 60 miles per hour. So this is kind of the focal point for the majority of the strongest winds as we get closer and closer to about 12:15 late this evening. All right, Lorain County probably going to see some rain. Some rumbles of thunder, a good bet, but we're hoping and keeping the fingers crossed that a lot of this wind does continue to die down as it gets closer and closer to Lorain County. So we'll be talking at least some heavier downpours for the next hour or so, especially in our western communities, but hopefully not much more than that throughout the second half of the overnight tonight into the wee hours of tomorrow morning. Ashland County definitely getting some very heavy rain and lots of lightning. Yeah, that lightning is still a very, very potent factor Early this morning, I got woken up by some lightning, and Mother Nature, unfortunately, does not like the snooze alarm. Doesn't let me do that, despite being a meteorologist. So potential for some at least late nights for some folks this evening. So there will be maybe a little bit more lightning for the next hour or so with a lot of these storms. Hopefully we'll get the lightning down a little bit more towards manageable levels, but definitely a light show right now in Ashland County all the way up towards Norwalk and Sandusky, and starting to maybe hear a little bit of that thunder around Wellington. Just kind of the outskirts of Lorain County, perhaps a little bit of that rain starting to make an appearance right now, but I think a lot of this will be a little bit more rain oriented rather than the actual severe weather for the end of the overnight tonight. So let's see here. Yep. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. Okay, any other questions here? Yeah, Mansfield really starting to see some rain, and a lot of those, at least lightning strikes, still very prevalent. You're on the outside of that stronger wind, so that is some good news. So Mansfield itself not under that warning necessarily, but Ashland, you're still under that severe thunderstorm warning for another about 15 or so minutes before hopefully that will expire. I'm not seeing any indication of it continuing to the north. So I think Lodi, you're looking at some more heavy rain in the next half hour, 45 minutes towards Wellington. Oberlin, Lorain, certainly some very heavy rain once again as we get into the next half hour to 45 minutes moving in that direction. And a lot of the rain is kind of staying to the south and east as well. So let's not forget our friends down in Dover, New Philly, just to the south around Murricksville. Southern Tuscarawas County, definitely some very heavy rain. Thankfully, nothing as far as severe weather indicated right now, but I think the rain is going to be a big problem for the next several hours with more of these downpours, good bets, and certainly some very, at least heavy rain and some very frequent lightning. And we do have another severe thunderstorm warning. Yep. Just issued for Medina County. So we were hoping, but unfortunately, Mother Nature did not provide at least hope. So we're still looking at that severe thunderstorm warning for some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts now moving into parts of Medina County as well as into Lorain County. So hopefully we'll not see many more of these severe thunderstorm warnings here in Greater Cleveland for the end of the 1 o'clock hour. So still looking at that threat for a little bit more of those stronger winds towards the north and east of Ashland, now into Medina County until 1 a.m. and Lorain County under that severe thunderstorm warning until about 1 a.m. with those stronger winds being the primary concern, along with some very heavy rain and probably a good bet for a little bit more in the way of some lightning with these storms as they do move further and further north and eastward. So a lot of the at least rain is going to be the bigger concern for many locations, but can't rule out a few more stronger wind gusts with some of these thunderstorms to the south and west of at least the Greater Cleveland area. So let's kind of take a look at our wind velocities right now. Still some gusts, at least a possibility getting close to 50, maybe 60 miles an hour. So around Ravenna, a little bit shy of 50. Ashland still around 50. New London at 34. So at least the winds are starting to die down a little bit. 53 towards England. Not seeing a lot of those brighter blues as we saw earlier with that thunderstorm around Ashland County. So we'll hopefully keep things under severe limits of about 60 miles per hour, and hopefully we'll see a lot less of these severe thunderstorm warnings moving further north and eastward. But still a chance for some stronger winds reaching the West Salem area up towards Wellington, Huntington, Sullivan. Nova, definitely going to be seeing some stronger winds around Polk and Red Haw as well. So a little bit more wind going to be a concern for the end of the evening into the overnight tonight for parts of Ashland County and also into Huron and Erie County with some of those at least lighter greens indicating between about 40 and maybe 50 miles per hour with some of those gusts. But there could be a pocket of maybe close to 60 with these thunderstorms slowly making their way eastward, northeastward, into the latter half of the 12 o'clock hour. So we still have a little bit more time with some of these thunderstorm warnings. The new one issued until about 1 a.m. for this polygon, which does include Lorain, Medina, and northern parts of Wayne County, even into the extreme western half of Summit County under that severe thunderstorm warning right now. Greater Cleveland, downtown especially, not under the warning officially, but I think the western half of Cuyahoga County towards at least the Brunswick area in Medina County, towards maybe Westlake under that severe thunderstorm warning for the end of this evening. So, yep, there's also a marine warning out there, so hopefully a lot of folks are off the water this evening And let's see here. Uh, define north. What are you looking at here? Oh, towards Sandusky in that area? Yeah, we can definitely take a look at some of those wind estimates right now. So there's between about 55 and maybe 60-mile-per-hour gusts in a couple locations towards the Sandusky area, towards Kimball at about 18 miles an hour, so not quite into the northern half of Erie County just yet, but there's definitely some indication of some stronger winds. Let's see, about 52 miles an hour around the York area, and as we get into Weaver's Corners, a little bit less than that. So there's still a main line of some of those stronger winds throughout the second half of the 12 o'clock hour. So let's kind of highlight some of those stronger winds right now. So pretty much right around that area is going to be your strongest wind gusts for the next half hour or so. And then once we get past that, things will start to quiet down the further south and west you are of that line. So definitely a little bit more wind with some of these storms as they're moving into an area that really hasn't seen much of at least some thunderstorm activity since about 8 o'clock this morning here in parts of greater Cleveland, as well as into parts of the at least Medina area, which hasn't really seen much rain so far, with the exception of the wee hours of last night and early this morning. So the severe thunderstorm warning issued for another about 40 minutes or so for Lorain and Medina County, and we still have another about 10 or so minutes for parts of Sandusky down into Ashland County. But the further south and west you are of Mansfield, I think you're good to go. No problems. If you're maybe wanting to head to bed, there could be a little bit more lightning, unfortunately, with some of these heavier downpours still lingering. But those storms, my goodness, still very much bringing some very substantial rainfall, lots and lots of flash flooding concerns in and around the Zanesville area and points around Coshocton, but definitely some at least flooding issues will be the biggest concern once we get past a lot of these severe thunderstorm warnings over the next hour or so. Parma Heights, going to see a potential for maybe some heavy rain within the next hour, hour and a half, and hopefully we'll get these severe thunderstorm warnings out of here as we get closer and closer to 1 o'clock. So Strongsville technically under that warning towards Lorain, Oberlin, Wellington, Lodi, Canaan, Seville, also into Barberton, and Akron. You're just kind of on the fringe of that warning. So we'll be talking at least the next 40 minutes or so before we see this warning start to get out of here. We'll hopefully keep a lot of those winds out of the Akron-Canton area into greater Cleveland, but I think the rain is going to be a big concern for the next several hours here in northeast Ohio. Let's see here. Any lightning on the west side of Cleveland? So yeah, the lightning not quite into greater Cleveland just yet, but it is getting close. We're talking those lightning bolts are a little more efficient around the central Ashland County area and definitely around the Norwalk area. Kind of starting to see some breaks in the lightning, indicating some more at least quieting down of the storm. So hopefully that will be the at least trend for a lot of the area under that severe thunderstorm warning from Medina down into Smithville, Worcester, also into Lorain. So there's still some gusty winds out there, but I think a lot of it will be more of a heavy rain potential for the end of the overnight tonight into the next couple of hours. So let's see here. Good lightning show. Yeah, definitely going to be a good lightning show for at least the next 45 minutes or so. But things will hopefully start to calm down once we get closer to 1, 2 a.m. and hopefully not seeing much more of that lightning after we get through the latter half of the overnight tonight. So let's kind of take a look here. We have some flood advisories now in place for Richland County as we get into the next couple of hours. So we've seen at least a couple of inches for some of the area within the last 3 hours, and some at least low-lying areas and potentially maybe some at least drainage problems will be a possibility for the end of the 12 o'clock hour. So we have that at least advisory. Let's get the lightning off of there. So we have that advisory right now for Ashland into Mansfield with those very heavy rains we've seen over the last couple of hours. So there could be some minor flooding, maybe the basement a little bit more damp than we normally like it, as the potential for some very heavy rains might continue to be a bit of a problem for the end of the evening hours. But a lot of this rain is going to be at least just a rain problem rather than actual wind here in most of northeast Ohio as we're still seeing a little bit more of those severe thunderstorm warnings here in parts of the greater Cleveland area. Not quite under that warning just yet, but we're still talking a little bit more of that severe potential with a couple of these thunderstorms late this evening. Okay, let's get here. Any more warnings up to date? Okay, all that is good there. So we're still looking at a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings right now, but this is kind of transitioning more towards a rain event for most areas over the next hour or so. So we still have about another 25 minutes before we can kind of hopefully say goodbye to most of these warnings. We go through about 1 a.m. for the areas in this polygon right now for at least Lorain County down in Medina, and the next 10 or so minutes for Sandusky down into central Ashland County. But the further south and west you are, just some kind of steady, heavy rain is going to be the big concern for the end of this evening into the overnight tonight. Let's see, some small hail in Polk. Yeah, would not be surprised to maybe hear a little bit of at least hail out there as well. Not necessarily going to be a large hail producer, but yeah, the threat is kind of still there. Let's kind of take a look at our Barron button right now. So yeah, maybe about a ½ inch. So that's about nickel-size hail possibility around the Polk area, maybe into at least the Red Haw towards Roseburg as well. So a threat for maybe a little bit of small hail, but I think also some very heavy rain will be that potential for most of us throughout the overnight hours. And as far as the rain is concerned, kind of starting to see it go a little bit further northward into Canaan towards the Worcester area, and definitely some very inundated rain from Sandusky to Norwalk down into Ashland as we round out the first half of this evening. Some stronger winds will be maybe a possibility. Tornadic developments I don't think is going to be a problem tonight, thankfully. So we'll certainly see some rain, a little bit of lightning potential, and maybe a few more stronger wind gusts before we can safely say a lot of this will be well below severe limits for the end of the evening into the overnight tonight. Yeah, a lot of that humidity is going to be a big concern for the next several days. So heavy rain, unfortunately, is going to be a bit of a problem with some of these very humid conditions over the next at least 2 to maybe 3 days before the rain kind of subsides a little bit here in parts of northeast Ohio. So a lot of these raindrops are going to be at least a little bit more steady and heavy as we get into the overnight tonight. Okay. Let's see here. So a couple more severe thunderstorm warnings. Hopefully we'll be able to get that out of here in the next half hour. Still that thunderstorm around Toledo just does not want to quit. Moving a little bit further north into southern Michigan, so we're not really going to see too much of that moving our way. But the storms right now, at least into Medina County, starting to make more of an appearance into this evening. As far as thunderstorms tomorrow around the Newark area, I think it'll be a little bit worse than some at least indications, but we'll have to keep a close eye on it. So the threat for some more severe weather will return for the afternoon tomorrow, especially as we get into the at least afternoon and evening across parts of central Ohio. As far as Cuyahoga Falls right now, there might be a little bit more of those stronger winds, but I think the heaviest rain will be the bigger concern for most of Summit County as we get into the next hour or so. So hopefully we'll get a lot of these thunderstorms to kind of quiet down. There's a little bit more of that at least green in the middle of that severe thunderstorm warning around parts of Ashland and just south of Norwalk. So that is indication of some weakening. So hopefully we'll continue to see that weakening as we get a little bit closer and closer to Medina County. And hopefully that will not be much of an issue for at least the stronger storms here in most of greater Cleveland, as well as the I-77 corridor and points eastward. So we don't really have one severe thunderstorm warning in our neck of the woods per se to kind of worry about. So the threat is still there for at least the next 5 or so minutes for the Erie County area, and we're looking at that threat still around Huron till about 12:30 as well. And then Ashland, hopefully out of that severe thunderstorm warning within the next 5 or so minutes once again. But we still have that severe weather, at least potential, with that severe thunderstorm watch for our western communities until about 2 a.m. for Erie, Huron, and Richland County. Not seeing anything indicating potential for that moving further eastward, but still at least a threat for some heavier rains will be an indication of some flooding concerns for the next couple of hours. So a lot of these storms kind of moving their way across the region at about 30 to 40 miles per hour. So they have picked up a little bit more speed within the last hour or so, but definitely the potential for some heavier rains will be moving in to the area within the next couple of hours. So let's kind of see what we got here. Let's see, where is Seville, if memory serves me correctly. There we go, southern Medina County. So yeah, the potential is there, probably within the next half hour, 40 minutes at most, for some of those heavier rains starting to make their way into parts of at least the southern part of Medina County. And I'm getting some reports from the Huron agency out of the county emergency, some stronger winds. Milan just picked up about a 50-mile-per-hour wind gust within the last half hour or so. So certainly some winds out there continuing to be a big concern for the end of this evening. Really windy and rain and thunder and lightning upstairs in the bedroom, trying to get ready for bed, but I'm not sure if I should go downstairs. Jenny, where are you at? If you would let me know where you're at, I can definitely give you some information. If you do want to maybe head to bed, hopefully we'll be able to get a lot of these storms out of here so folks can probably get some sleep, as I'm sure a lot of us are not wanting to stay up too late with a lot of these rumbles of thunder still with us, especially around the Sandusky area and central Ashland County, with still that severe thunderstorm warning for at least the next couple of minutes. But hopefully that will expire and we'll not have too much else to worry about with these storms around the Ashland area right now. Let's see. Winds whipping around Mansfield. Tarp flew off. Oh, man. Not a good scenario there. So a lot of these storms, let's see, Mansfield quieting down. So you're not necessarily in the severe thunderstorm warning at all. So that is good news, but the heavy rain is certainly going to be still an issue. And maybe still some stronger winds at about 30, maybe 40 miles per hour. Moving back into Ashland itself, around the Norwalk area, but I'm not seeing a lot of those bright blues, so that is some good news. These winds will hopefully start to at least quiet down a little bit more as we get into the evening hours. Let's see, do we really see? There's a couple of bright blues there, so there might be a little bit more of those stronger winds closer to 60 just north of New London, and then potential maybe for a couple more stronger winds just north of Sullivan, closer to 50, Savannah around 52. So yeah, there's still some decent wind out there, but as far as the widespread severe potential, not seeing a lot of close to 60 miles per hour. So there could be some at least issues if anything's kind of left outside loose, maybe some lawn furniture kind of toppled over with some of these gustier winds, and maybe some at least smaller branches could be at least moved pretty easily with some of these stronger winds. So I got some thunder in Medina, not much wind right now, which is some good news, and not a lot of rain so far in Medina, but the potential will be increasing for at least the next half hour to 45 minutes for parts of Medina County, especially around the Lodi area, and just south of that in Canaan in through parts of at least Wayne County. So the good news is the Ashland County area no longer under that severe thunderstorm warning. We just have this one until about 1 a.m. For the majority of the area of Medina County up towards Lorain and just kind of north of Worcester, where we're starting to see a little bit more of those steady raindrops right now around Smithville, towards Canaan. Lodi on the verge of seeing some of those heavier raindrops up towards Wellington, seeing some little bit more of that rain, and Oberlin as well. And I probably think within the next half hour, 45 minutes, we'll start to see a little bit more of that rain in Medina towards the Strongsville area, as these storms are moving at about 30 to 40 miles per hour, so it's probably going to take a little bit more time before we start to see a little bit more of that rain here in Greater Cleveland especially. So in the meantime, we're not looking at a lot more in the way of severe weather for the rest of the region, especially the at least flooding concern is going to be the bigger issue for our southern communities. So south of the Route 30 corridor especially has just been inundated with a lot of those raindrops and very, very heavy rain in and around the central half of Ohio. So poor folks just south of Coshocton and especially around parts of Perry, Morgan County, Muskingum County is a lot more flooded than they would like it this evening, as those very heavy rains have really not been moving too quickly. And over the last several hours, in fact, they've seen some very, very heavy rain here and around parts of the Crooksville area, causing that flash flood warning to be issued. So yeah, if you're traveling anywhere across southern Ohio in the next 24 hours, it's going to be a lot more travel troubles rather than at least travel triumphs with a lot of these heavy rains causing more flooding concerns. And they're still dealing with some very heavy rain just to the south of Dover, New Philly, around Coshocton. So I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see a few more flood advisories and or warnings, perhaps even flash flood warnings impacting parts of Tuscarawas County and into Holmes County once we get past at least 1, 2 a.m. So a lot of those heavier rains will be a big, big concern for the end of the overnight tonight. Lakewood, I think, will be okay. We'll just see some heavier rains moving back into the western half of greater Cleveland within the next hour or so. I think a lot of the at least severe potential will be going down as we get closer and closer to 1 a.m., but there's still maybe some stronger winds that we'll have to contend with, at least for the time being, with maybe 30 to 40 mile per hour winds rather than those 50 or 60 mile per hour winds that were kind of at least issued with that severe thunderstorm warning. And yeah, Mason, the threat is still there for maybe some stronger winds. Not necessarily seen a lot of at least indication of those winds getting stronger and stronger. They're kind of staying a little bit closer to maybe 50, perhaps a little bit closer to 60 in a couple pockets, but overall those winds will begin to at least subside a little bit more once we get closer and closer to 1 a.m. So that is certainly some good news there. Towards West Salem, lots and lots of rain, wind and thunder, definitely going to be a very busy next half hour to 45 minutes for the northern half of at least Ashland County right now. And let's take a look at your lightning display. Yeah, there's just a few lightning strikes going on around West Salem right now. So yeah, the lightning going to be a bit of a problem. So unfortunately, if you're not a big fan of maybe thunder, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of get some sleep across parts of Ashland County into southern Medina. Some of that lightning is still a big issue just north of Norwalk. Still a very, very big lightning display currently right now moving into parts of Medina County and also in Lorain County. So around Wellington towards Oberlin and not quite into Lorain proper itself. But I think we'll see some of that lightning moving further and further north and eastward. Let's see, Stowe around 2 a.m. Probably just a little bit of rain. I don't see a lot of the severe weather continuing past about 1, 2 a.m., so we'll hopefully see a little bit more in the way of just kind of some general rain with maybe a few more rumbles of thunder. And look at that, Toledo under a severe thunderstorm warning yet again. I think that was expired within the last 5 or so minutes. So these storms, yeah, there's still at least a little bit more in the way of strong, especially with some of these northern storms that really have been impacted with a lot of the instability still lingering for the end of this evening. Let's see here. So Massillon, yeah, you'll see some rain, probably a little bit more thunder, a possibility for central parts of at least the Akron-Canton area, but I don't think we'll see a lot of severe weather potential across parts of Stark County. So I think Massillon, you'll probably at least be woken up from a little bit of that thunder for the next hour or so before things really begin to quiet down, probably after about 2, 3 o'clock at the very latest. So definitely some thunder, kind of keeping folks awake late tonight, and the majority of that rain, my goodness, is just continuing to stay in place for central parts of Ohio right now with a lot of flash flooding. So this is going to be a pretty dangerous scenario with some of these flash flood warnings in and around central Ohio especially, and maybe a little bit more of those advisory criteria floodings. Hopefully not really too many, but there is one at least for the Mansfield area with some at least flooding concerns, and just to the west around parts of Findlay under that at least advisory late this evening as well. So a lot of these storms kind of making their way at least through the area. Right now we're just dealing with one severe thunderstorm warning in and around Medina County, and that goes through about another 25 minutes or so. Let's see if there's any new updates with the National Weather Service right now. Okay, come on phone, there we go. So just that new marine warning right there over Lake Erie, and yeah, these storms are kind of moving a little bit further northward at about 40 miles per hour. So they're starting to at least pick up a little bit of speed here in the last hour or so, because earlier today they were only moving about 20, maybe even 15 miles per hour at times. So still some at least issues with some of these heavier rains within the next hour or two. Let's see here. So the lightning's starting to go down a little bit around Ashland County. Still a very, very potent lightning display around the Norwalk area. Sandusky definitely being inundated with a lot of that lightning. But further south towards Canana, Worcester, a little bit of lightning out there, but not a continuous, at least a lightning show by any stretch, as these storms hopefully will continue to weaken a little bit more as we do move into the next half hour or so. But lightning strikes still very much a big, at least a problem. Let's see here. For 1 a.m. around the Vermilion area, let's kind of see here. So, yeah, definitely some very heavy rain around Vermilion towards Florence. That is starting to make more of an appearance. And let's kind of check out some of your winds. Yeah, still a few more gusty winds. These things just do not want to quiet down, unfortunately. So around 53 miles per hour just north of Wakeman. Florence, closer to 40. Shinrock around 34. Collins, 45 to 46. So there might be some 40 to maybe 50 miles per hour starting to make an appearance around Vermilion within the next half hour or so, with the severe thunderstorm warning still in place for another 20 minutes or so. We'll definitely see some stronger winds, but I think also some very heavy rain is going to be a big issue for the at least foreseeable future around Vermilion. Now into Wellington, definitely seeing a lot of those heavier raindrops. Let's kind of see the rain rates here. Yeah, starting to at least pile up a little bit more just to the south of West Salem, south of Lodi. Some heavier downpours. Those purples are indication of some more heavy rains, and also that very heavy rain starting to make more of an appearance towards the Norwalk and just south of Sandusky. But rainfall rates starting to lessen a little bit in between both of those areas, so that is some good news as well. But still a decent amount of rain nonetheless for the next couple of hours in and around most of northeast Ohio. And as far as totals, yeah, we picked up a lot. There's a couple bullseyes just south of Norwalk, or just south of Sandusky towards the Norwalk area. Let's kind of check out some of the estimates right now at about 4 inches potential for some of those rainfall estimates via the Power 5 just south of Sandusky. So yeah, a very, very rainy afternoon and rainy evening, and we have that flood advisory, that kind of teal shading for the next couple of hours, I'm sure. Let's see when that expires. Through about 4:30 in the morning for most of Erie County, with that potential for 3 to 4 inches of rain within the last couple of hours alone. So yeah, definitely some big flooding concerns. Outside of that, not a lot of big flooding concerns here in the News 5 viewing area, but further south, Perry County has definitely been inundated by rain over the last several hours, and that's potentially, I mean, this is, yeah, Cleveland radar is very, very far away, but my goodness, nearly 7 inches of rain may have fallen within Perry County over the last several hours alone. I don't see that as gospel by any stretch, but at least the potential is there for probably 4, maybe 5 inches of liquid out of the sky within the last couple of hours further south. So yeah, a lot of flooding is going to be a big concern for most areas towards the south of the I-70 corridor. Yeah, lots and lots of rain right now here in most of the southern half of the state. Parma, going to probably see a little bit more of those rain showers, a little bit more maybe steady, heavy rain within the next couple of hours, but not necessarily, I think, we'll keep the severe thunderstorm warning until probably about 1. Hopefully we'll not see that continuing into parts of Cuyahoga County, but still some flooding concerns. Maybe a little bit more of those rumbles of thunder between now and about 2 a.m. will be a possibility for central Cuyahoga County, but overall it is going to be a definite rain event for many areas as we wrap up this evening and start off tomorrow morning. So yeah, a lot of those lightning strikes are going to be probably keeping folks awake a little bit more. Thank you very much. Christina watching from Massillon. We appreciate you guys, and hopefully everyone is staying safe tonight, because I think we'll still see a potential for some strong to severe storms yet again tomorrow night, and we'll be back if we need to, as quickly as we need to with these live streams, which a lot of folks are definitely at least benefiting from, with the potential of severe weather here in northeast Ohio over the last several days. Saw on a couple nights ago with some of those stronger storms last night, and tonight with the severe storms right now. But hopefully not seeing many more severe thunderstorm warnings after we get through this one. So we got about another 20 minutes before we can hopefully say goodbye to this severe thunderstorm warning. And I think we'll see a lot more, at least rain and perhaps some flooding once we get into the end of the overnight tonight. Lots and lots of pretty lightning as we get into Worcester. Hopefully a lot of that lightning not causing many folks to not get to sleep, as I'm prone to, unfortunately. Every time I see lightning or hear thunder, I kind of automatically wake up. It's one of those bad habits, unfortunately, for a meteorologist. But hopefully a lot of folks are be able to at least get some sleep once we get past this severe thunderstorm warning, which is not really showing a lot of intensity by any stretch, but there's just enough to kind of cause some concern for those at least stronger wind gusts of about maybe 50, closer to 60 miles per hour, which can definitely do some damage in some of those areas. No twisters involved except for the board game. Unless we have one of those here at the station. I don't think we do, but we're not really worried too much about tornadoes, thankfully, tonight. More flooding is going to be the bigger concern, but there will be the threat for some lightning and maybe a little bit more of a stronger wind gust, about 40, maybe 50 miles per hour over the next several hours in through parts of northeast Ohio. Susan, we are very thankful for you, and we're definitely happy that you guys are very, very thankful, because we're here to keep you guys safe. We're wanting to let you know, hey, we've got severe thunderstorm warnings. It's almost 1 a.m. We got over several hundred people watching us, making sure everyone is safe. I know when I was young, I wished I had something like this, so that way I was able to keep things at least situated in my mind, because storm anxiety is a big thing, definitely a big concern, and we're trying to alleviate some of that storm anxiety with these live streams to kind of keep you guys safe and make sure you kind of know what's going on. So a lot of folks here in the area is going to be a little bit more rain here into northeast Ohio. Chardon, yep, back at it again. We're looking at that potential for some heavier downpours, especially as we get into the next couple of hours. But I think the severe limits will start to at least go down even more as we get closer and closer to Geauga County. So Chardon, probably going to see some rain, maybe some rumbles of thunder as we get closer and closer, maybe 2 before things do begin to quiet down. But we'll still see some rain showers, maybe a little bit of minor flooding in a couple locations, especially if we get some more of those raindrops kind of sitting in place, which is a possibility with some of these very at least slow-moving storms within the next couple of hours. All right. Yeah, those storms are starting to make their presence felt just to the west of Portage County, and we'll hopefully see a lot less of those severe thunderstorm warnings. Still a couple in place well to the south of the I-70 corridor towards Marietta and into Parkersburg, and also that little storm that just does not want to quit around Toledo. That one goes to about 12:45 as well, so hopefully that one will start to expire, but we still have this monstrosity of a polygon for the next at least 15 or so minutes throughout the end of this evening. Tuscarawas County, I don't think anything necessarily going to be severe. Might see some flooding. I think that is going to be your biggest issue with a lot of these heavy raindrops certainly continuing to fall over the same place on several occasions within the last couple of hours. Some lightning, a good possibility, but I'm not seeing necessarily anything severe for Tuscarawas, or for that matter, most of southern parts of Stark County. Some of that rain will continue to stick around, but I don't think a lot of it necessarily going to get close to severe limits. There might be some flooding concern, but I don't see a lot of that threat, at least as far as any severe weather the further south. So Medina County, probably within the next half hour at most. Hopefully we'll get this warning out of here by at least 1 o'clock tomorrow or 1 o'clock today. And then once we get into the next couple of hours, we'll just see some general rain, maybe some rumbles of thunder. But I'm not seeing a lot of reports of anything as far as damage from some of these thunderstorms that are continuing to move through Medina County right now. So the at least biggest concern in my mind is going to be the potential for at least some heavier rains with a lot of these storms as we get into the day-to-day into probably the next half hour. Very, very welcome. We're always here to, guys, keep you help and make sure those storm anxieties are pretty much the lowest they can be without having many problems. So, yeah, a lot of these storms definitely are, a little scary if you don't quite know what's going on. You hear a lot of thunder, some gusts of wind on occasion. And we're going to continue to see that severe thunderstorm warning at least for the next 15 or so minutes. Let's see here, and let's see. So Huron County and Ashland, that severe thunderstorm warning has been at least expired, so that is some good news there. And we're still looking at that potential for a close to 60-mile-per-hour gust in a couple locations in and around the at least warning itself. Yep, they just trimmed that once again. So the at least strongest winds are kind of moving into Lorain County right now. So let's kind of get you a peek what we're looking at here. So 38 to near 40. Some 50-mile-per-hour winds just around the Wellington area and just to the north of Lodi. So winds are starting to subside a little bit, so hopefully within the next 15 or so minutes we won't be talking much more of that severe threat with regards to winds, but I think we'll transition more towards the rainy side of things once we get into the end of the 12 o'clock hour tonight. All right. So a lot of this is going to be kind of just rain once we get past hopefully the 1 o'clock hour here. Yeah, not really seeing a lot more potential of severe storms in around northeast Ohio. So this is kind of your only at least concern right now, especially in southern parts of Lorain County, just south of Overland towards Pittsfield, Spencer, Litchfield, Grafton, just to the south of Elyria, starting to see a little bit more of that rain. And within the next probably 15, 20 minutes, we'll probably see a little bit more, maybe some gusts closer to 40, maybe 50 miles per hour, but I'm not thinking we'll see much more past that as we get into the latter half of the 12 o'clock hour. So still a lot more rain, some very heavy rain, unfortunately, still south of Sandusky. Milan still looking at Milan, excuse me, as we get into the latter half of the 12 o'clock hour. Norwalk still looking at some decent rains down into Fairfield, North Fairfield, excuse me, New London, Clarksfield, but the concern still a little bit more gusty winds around the Litchfield area towards Grafton, just south of Elyria, and then once we get into at least probably the central half of Medina County, maybe a few more rumbles of thunder with maybe some stronger winds around Medina proper towards Lafayette. Brunswick could potentially see a little bit more of that rain, along with some very heavy, at least downpours for the latter half of this evening. Let's kind of take a look at some of the velocities. Here around Oberlin, maybe some stronger winds, definitely a possibility. Let's take a look here, 38 to near 40, maybe some close to 50, 60-mile-per-hour winds in a pocket or two. Not anticipating a widespread 60-mile-per-hour event by any stretch, but there's just enough indication to maybe seeing a couple of those stronger winds approaching severe limits for the end of this evening. So severe thunderstorm warning continues until about 1 a.m., so hopefully another about 5 or 10 minutes before we can finally say good night to that severe thunderstorm warning here in around parts of Lorain and Medina County especially. And let's see here. Wind is wild and lightning is wild in Lodi. Yeah, would not doubt that for a second. We've got lots and lots of those lightning strikes going on just to the north of Lodi and just to your south. So you're kind of right in between some of those at least intense lightning strikes around parts of Chatham, up towards Grafton, and the real lightning display still going on around Sandusky. My goodness, we've not seen any break within the last hour or so. And yeah, another flash flood warning, unfortunately, just issued for parts of at least the Sandusky area within the last couple of seconds there. So yeah, a lot of that heavy rain is still causing big concerns in and around parts of Sandusky this evening. So we have that flash flood warning now for Erie County for at least the next 4 to 5 hours. So travel is going to be very tricky for anybody trying to get out and about for the start of the day on Tuesday. If you're anywhere around parts of those flood advisories or warnings, there could potentially be some flooded roadways, and definitely do not want to drive over any of those flooded roadways, as you may or may not know how at least deep that water actually is here in parts of northeast Ohio, with all these raindrops continuing to stay very heavy this evening. hopefully we'll be able to say goodbye to this warning in the next 10 or so minutes. And then more or less just kind of keeping an eye on a lot of the flooding concerns once we get past the 1 o'clock hour tonight. So a lot of this is going to be kind of general rain, rumbles of thunder, potentially some more flooding issues for the second half of the overnight tonight. So if you're traveling early tomorrow morning, give yourself plenty of extra time, as the roadways could be flooded in some areas, and you may have to at least divert your traffic in some locations to an alternate route, especially with some of these very heavy raindrops. The further west of Lorain around I-90 could potentially be a little more of a hazardous travel for the morning tomorrow. Let's see here. Canton area, I think just some general rain. We're not necessarily going to be talking a lot of severe winds by any stretch. Some rumbles of thunder, definitely a good bet, but a general kind of thunderstorm for most of at least Stark County and Canton in the at least next couple of hours. And we're certainly going to be tracking more of that potential of some rain between now and the end of probably about 3 o'clock today. So the threat will be there for some rumbles of thunder, may keep you from at least getting some solid sleep. But overall, I don't see a lot of severe weather moving into parts of at least the end of the evening across most of the area. Canton has lightning but no rain, about 2:30, starting to see there, maybe closer to 1 now. Not really quite getting into the 2 o'clock hour by any stretch. Some rain is definitely starting to move a little bit quicker, so some showers, some rumbles of thunder making their way into Canton, and probably most of this actually out of here by about 2:30, 3 o'clock as we get closer and closer to the morning hours. I think a lot of us will remain a little bit quieter to get into the first half of the morning especially. Cuyahoga Falls, a little bit of that rain starting to make its way in over the next half hour, 45 minutes or so, but not really anticipating a lot of severe weather per se. Let's see, towards Cuyahoga Falls, you might see maybe a 40-mile-per-hour wind gust along with some heavy rains and maybe some rumbles of thunder, but we're not anticipating a lot of severe winds, so not quite getting up to the 50, 60-mile-per-hour category by any stretch as we get into the next hour or so. I think some of those winds will maybe make it into parts of Eaton, towards Strongsville, maybe a little bit more of those stronger winds, but hopefully we'll see this severe thunderstorm warning expire in the next 5 or so minutes here in the next 5 minutes for at least most of this thunderstorm. Have not seen anything indicating they will continue it past the severe limits right now of Lorain and Medina County. So let's kind of take a look at some of those velocities. Yeah, still a couple maybe slight instances of a 50-plus mile-per-hour gust, but we are looking at those numbers kind of going down throughout the second half of this evening. So most of them under about 50 miles per hour, which is still enough to kind of rattle some things. You might hear the wind chimes going, some of the trees might lose a branch or two, but we're not anticipating a lot of damage per se with 30 to 40 mile per hour gusts. So I think they'll probably expire this warning, hopefully within the next 5 or so minutes, and not necessarily going to continue to keep it in place as these winds are starting to kind of go down. But the rain is going to be very heavy, unfortunately, with a lot of these at least higher moisture contents here in the area. Here in northeast Ohio. Lorain County still under a severe thunderstorm warning for the next 5 or so minutes. Lorain itself hasn't really seen much rain at all so far today, with the exception of the wee hours of this morning. But starting to see some of that rain. Vermilion definitely seeing rain. Oberlin towards Pittsfield. Litchfield, a little bit more of that rain. Eaton kind of on your doorstep right now. Just outside of Cuyahoga County, we'll hopefully see a little bit more of that rain within the next 15, 20 minutes or so at very much. A little bit more maybe thunder with some of these raindrops, but I don't think a lot of the severe criteria will make it into greater Cleveland late this evening. So a lot of those raindrops, hey, raindrops keep falling on my head too sometimes. Unfortunately, I always seem to park the farthest away from the station every time we have one of these rain events, and I always tend to forget my umbrella. I don't know what the problem is. Anywho, a lot of these raindrops are continuing to move further north and eastward, so I think Strongsville between now and about maybe 1:15, 1:30 at the very latest, and we'll certainly be tracking some more rain here in downtown Cleveland. Avon towards Lorain, definitely seeing some of those raindrops, and rumbles of thunder, still kind of a big issue, unfortunately, here in parts of northeast Ohio for the foreseeable future, as a lot of these very heavy rains going to cause some more flooding issues here in northeast Ohio this evening. So still tracking that potential for maybe a few stronger wind gusts with this severe thunderstorm warning, which will hopefully be expired in the next couple of minutes. And we still have a little bit more flooding concern than anything with some of these very heavy downpours still around parts of Dover, New Philly, now moving into Canton, into Uricksville, down to Newcomerstown. Berlin definitely seeing some very heavy rain. Kilbuck towards the Worcester area. So I think this is kind of transitioning more towards just a steady rain event. Rumbles of thunder, certainly a good possibility, but we're certainly well at least removed from the sun's warmth, about 6 hours as we get into the latter half of the overnight tonight. So we're looking at a little more rain, maybe some rumbles of thunder between now and about 3, 4 o'clock, and a lot of these raindrops will continue to be an issue for the overnight tonight. Song Grandma used to sing to me, and definitely great memories. I love to hear these stories. Yeah, a lot of folks just kind of have those memories of when, you know, grandma or mom or dad kind of sang to them. So yeah, definitely some happy memories with some of those songs here in northeast Ohio this evening. Weather in Lorain, no tornado. No, we're going to see a little more heavy rain, some flooding issues, and I think that's going to be the biggest concern right now. Maybe a few more stronger winds of about 40 miles an hour, but we're not looking at anything tornadic this evening. Thankfully, that is some good news. So we'll be maybe at least contending with some more lightning, some rumbles of thunder, kind of keeping you awake tonight, but not really too much more than that within the next couple of hours. So thankfully, some things getting a little bit more, at least quiet, but still some rain and definitely some more flooding concerns for the end of the day, Monday into early Tuesday. So if you're traveling anywhere, especially west of Greater Cleveland, along I-90 towards the Sandusky area, give yourself plenty of extra time because there will definitely be some flooding concerns, maybe a little bit of at least flooding issues into the wee hours of tomorrow morning as well, with more rain, more steady, heavy rain a possibility for the second half of the day on Tuesday as well. Let's see here. Let's see, Portage County, not a lot of storms per se. We're going to be talking some rain, rumbles of thunder, but I think a lot of this will start to move out of here after about 3, 4 o'clock at the very latest. So we'll probably be contending with some rain and thunder between now and about maybe 2:30, 3 o'clock for most of Portage County as it stands across the area. Hopefully we'll be able to see that severe thunderstorm warning expire, as there's been really not any indication that they will extend it. Thankfully, and let's see here, nope. So that is some good news there. Let's see here. Ready for some snow. I know, it's still August. Why are we thinking snow? I know, humidity, thunderstorms, yeah. It would be kind of nice to not have to worry about lightning, especially as we get into the overnight hours, but yeah, it'll be here before we know it. Yeah, we'll be talking snow and lake effect as we get closer and closer to November, but yeah, let's not put the horse before the cart right now. And a lot of those, at least raindrops, starting to be a little bit less intimidating in our western communities of Lorain and also into Medina County. And we're getting closer to 1 o'clock right now. Hopefully that will expire. That severe thunderstorm warning, as let's see what the National Weather Service is kind of thinking here. Let's see. Okay, are they thinking of any more? Nope, not seeing any indication on that, at least front right now, so that is some good news. Yep, oh, excellent. Severe thunderstorm warning has expired for Medina and Lorain County, so good news there. But the only kind of bad news, there'll be some lightning, so yeah, it's going to be definitely a little bit more, at least bothersome if you're not a big fan of hearing some thunderclaps during the overnight hours, and also some flooding concerns for the next, oh my goodness, did they just put a new one in? Yes, they did. Oh, boy. I thought I was all excited, and then they got a new warning because, you know, why not? So 145 for Medina County right now. We were so close, folks, so close. I thought we were under severe limits, but I guess not. So still a severe thunderstorm warning for at least the next 45 minutes or so for Medina County. Now it does include the greater Cleveland area, also just south of Hudson, into Stowe and Akron around the Barberton area. And let's get some more information on that one. We were so close, so close. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so still some gusty winds. closer to about 60 miles per hour for this storm that just will not quit. Oh, my goodness. Let's see here. Yeah, I was so close, so close. We thought we were done, but I guess not. Oh, well. No, that is just a severe thunderstorm warning. There is no tornado that we are worried about right now. This is going to be some stronger winds, some straight line winds, maybe 50, 60 miles per hour, but there is no tornado. Do not need to worry about that. So some heavy rain is going to be a big concern as well. And these very, very heavy rains, I think, are going to be at least a bigger problem rather than those gusty winds, rather than these parts of the area of Medina and Cuyahoga County. So let's take a look at our base velocity. Still a little bit of at least an issue around the Grafton area. 47, I mean, yeah, there's still some concern, 40, maybe 50 mile per hour winds, but definitely some at least issues with some heavier rains is going to be the bigger concern as well. Doesn't mention, Lakewood's under that warning. Yeah, we're under the severe thunderstorm warning for basically the entire western half of Cuyahoga County. So yeah, Lakewood, yep, you're under that polygon as well. Not anything particularly there at the moment. You're just kind of the south portion of at least Lorain County into Medina County, and that will start to move into Cuyahoga County within the next half hour or so, and hopefully we'll see an end to that severe thunderstorm warning in the next half hour to 45 minutes. But still some at least gusty winds associated with this line of storms that is moving into Brunswick right now, just to the south of Strongsville. A little bit less of that rain around Elyria towards Lorain, but I think it's still some concern. We're not anticipating, widespread by any stretch strong wind event with these thunderstorms, but we're looking at that potential for some stronger winds as we get into the end of this evening with this storm. Particularly, the only thing really concerning for any more gusty winds outside of that, just more of that heavy rain, unfortunately, going to be the bigger issue late this evening. So let's kind of regroup here, take a look at some of those warnings outside of the area. Still a flash flood warning in effect until about 5:45 for Erie County, and that's an indication of about maybe 4 inches of rain has fallen parts of Erie County within the last couple of hours, and we still have some flood advisories for parts of Ashland down into Mansfield for the next couple of hours as well. So the threat will be there for a little bit more in the way of some heavier, steadier rain once we get into the next hour or so. Let's see here. LaGrange, seeing a little bit more of that rain. Moving into the western half of Lorain County. Let's kind of, where is LaGrange? Come on. Boy, these cities do not want to pop up right away, do they? Okay. Come on, where's LaGrange? There we go. So yeah, you're pretty much, I think, in the clear for the most part, LaGrange. You're not going to see too much amber, maybe some heavier rain, a few rumbles of thunder, but I think as far as the strongest winds, most of that is pushing well to your north and east. So you're pretty much in the clear for LaGrange down to Pleasant Run Village, Penfield. Most of the area, I think even in Elyria, is looking pretty quiet for the most part. Amherst, some heavier downpours, Oberlin, towards Kipton and Camden. So I think probably the worst of the at least steadiest rain and also maybe some of those gustier winds will be towards the south of LaGrange and Grafton. So at least Amber, you should be all right. So we're not going to see a lot of wind associated with that potential as far as any damage is concerned, but the threat is still there for some heavier rains once we get into the second half of the overnight tonight. As far as Kent, awesome storm. I wouldn't say awesome. You're probably going to get some lightning, perhaps a few rumbles of thunder, and maybe some heavier downpours for the second half of the overnights. But I don't think really awesome storms, unless you're being sarcastic. Then, we'll see a little bit of rain, some rumbles of thunder or two, a possibility in and around the Kent area as we get closer to probably maybe 2:15. As those storms are slowly making their way northward. So not a lot of concern with the severe thunderstorm warning per se, but there's just enough of at least some stronger winds associated with the actual storm itself that may cause a little bit of damage, especially the further north you are of Brunswick, around the Eaton area. Let's kind of take a little bit of a sample here. 35, 30 miles an hour. And I'm not really seeing a ton of wind per se, but you know, you want to respect the polygon. There is a severe thunderstorm warning, and the threat is still there for some stronger winds with these storms as they do move further and further northeastward. So Brunswick, definitely want to stay in place. Medina towards the Strongsville area and maybe in through parts of Lorain County. But the further south and west you are of Oberlin towards Wellington, Spencer, New London, there's nothing to worry about. You'll be able to head to bed without a problem, unless the lightning going to cause a little bit of that issue for you to stay awake. And let's see here, North Royalton. A little bit of that rain is starting to make its way northward into Cuyahoga County right now. So I think the rain is going to be the bigger issue rather than the severe thunderstorm winds per se. We'll definitely see the potential at least decreasing a little bit for some lightning as we get into the second half of the overnight tonight. Let's see here. As these storms are certainly moving a little bit quicker now. Let's see, where is that? Okay, moving east at about 40 miles per hour. So probably within the next 10 or 15 minutes at most for North Royalton across Cuyahoga County. I think the heavy rain will be the bigger concern with these thunderstorms as they do move further north and eastward. So Bath towards Cuyahoga Falls, some of that rain will continue to be a little bit more heavy and steady. Parma to downtown Cleveland. Euclid up towards Paynesville and Chardon. Starting to see a little bit less of that threat of some winds and more of those heavier rains as this storm will continue to push a little bit further northward. But Medina certainly inundated with a lot of that heavy rain. Brunswick looking at more of those heavier downpours down to Seville as well. So I think we'll probably see a little bit more rain than anything within the next half hour or at least 45 minutes at the very latest. Got some reports of some at least a half-size hail or half-inch hail around Marblehead within the last couple of hours. So a little bit of hail is certainly a possibility from some of these storms. It shouldn't be anything severe, thankfully, but you might see, you know, pea-size, perhaps even nickel-size hail in a couple locations within this thunderstorm, especially as it's a little bit more feisty. But most of this should remain on the rainy side, with some rumbles of thunder being the biggest concern. Massillon and Perry just starting to see some thunder right now. Yep, you're definitely going to see some at least heavier downpours down that way as well, with a lot more of that rain. But yeah, thunder is going to be, I think, the biggest concern to kind of keep folks awake. But those heavy rains will also be a bigger issue for the morning tomorrow, especially with some of those commutes that'll be moving in and around some of the back roads of some of these areas that have just been deluged with a lot of that rain here into the area, and watching for the at least flooding concern on some of those roadways here in northeast Ohio. Lorain County still looking at some raindrops out there, starting to see a little bit less of that storm risk. The further south you are of Oberlin, so Wellington, not really much of a problem. Pittsfield, not much of a problem either. Still maybe a few more rumbles of thunder, but I think the worst of that storm actually moving further into Medina County and kind of making an advance towards the Strongsville and southern half of Cuyahoga County within the next 10 or so minutes. So I think Lorain County, you're pretty much in the clear. Yeah, you're still under that polygon warning per se for Lorain and Elyria, Avon, maybe a little bit more of that rain and some rumbles of thunder. But the worst of the storm kind of staying to your south and east. So Medina towards the Brunswick area, Strongsville, maybe into Grafton is kind of the worst of this storm right now. And maybe a few more rumbles of thunder towards Vermilion and points westward. But we're not really seeing a lot of that consistency, a lot of at least concern in and around Lorain County. So I think most folks be able to go to bed without much of a problem, unless, you know, the lightning kind of keeps you awake. That's going to be the only kind of bad news I have to tell you. But most of Lorain County looking pretty quiet after we get through the next hour or so at the very latest, with some of this thunder continuing to move through the region. So, yeah, we're just continuing with one more of these severe thunderstorm warnings. Hopefully it will be set to expire within the next half hour or so. And once we get past that, just kind of a general flooding concern for most of the area for the latter half of the overnight tonight. So the severe thunderstorms continue to kind of still be a little bit of an issue here and there, but we are definitely very lucky. We did not really see a lot of severe weather past early this morning, and we really didn't really see a lot of this until sometime late tonight with more of these thunderstorms right now. Not really anything to worry about in Hudson per se for at least probably the next 10 or so minutes. We might see a stronger wind gust or two. Some lightning might keep you up in the Hudson area, but I don't think we'll see many more issues than that. So if you're okay with some of that thunder, I think you'll be able to go to bed without any problems this evening. So yeah, just some thunder might keep you awake a little bit, but overall not too much to worry about this evening. Yeah, lightning, definitely a very nice thing to look at. But if you can see it, if you can hear thunder, you're close enough to maybe get struck by it. So a lot of folks want to maybe take a peek at some of these thunderstorms, but you definitely want to stay away from windows, and you want to kind of stay at least indoors, especially with these thunderstorms producing a lot of lightning within the next couple of hours here in most of northeast Ohio. I've seen a lot of videos of lightning displays, at least the safe at least indication of these lightning displays from the inside of a house. So definitely a very cool thing to see, but do not want to be in and out of these thunderstorms here in northeast Ohio with a lot of that lightning. Yeah, dogs, unfortunately, my family had a dog when we were growing up. She absolutely hated lightning. Every time she heard thunder, she would just crawl into a room, and we wouldn't see her for at least a couple hours with these very, very potent lightning displays. So yeah, I definitely understand. A lot of dogs, not a big fan of lightning, but hopefully we'll get a lot of that lightning out of here in the next couple of hours. And west side of Cleveland, some gusty winds, maybe 40, 50 miles per hour, but I'm not really seeing a ton of wind past, 1 o'clock, maybe, or 1:30, 1:45. So I think a lot of this is just kind of precautionary. There's maybe some 50-mile-per-hour winds, maybe a gust here and there up to about 60, but we're not anticipating a lot of widespread, at least damage from this thunderstorm. But there will be some flooding issues on the west side of Cleveland, especially within the next couple of hours. So a lot of this rain is not really moving too quickly, so the threat for maybe a little bit of minor flooding, a possibility to begin the morning hours of your Tuesday. So the morning rush could be a little bit more tricky with some of these roadways throughout the next couple of hours. Pouring down in Hartville. Yeah, would not be surprised to maybe see a few more flooding issues in and around parts of Stark County. Some of these very heavy raindrops are going to be at least persistent for the next couple of hours. Lightning, not really showing a lot of intense lightning, but there's still a few bolts in and around North and South Canton towards Bankert Heights, Massillon, around Canal Fulton, Urban Hills, Green. Definitely hearing some rumbles of thunder out there towards Hartville. But thankfully, things will start to quiet down a little bit more. Orville and Dalton towards Canaan in Wayne County, a little bit less lightning out there. So the trend will be continuing to at least see the rain and lightning going down as we get closer and closer to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So still a little bit of time between now and then to at least deal with some of these very heavy rains at times. The further south you are of Route 30 is the biggest concern for a lot of that very heavy rain. So Dover, New Philly towards the I-77 corridor into Guernsey County around Cambridge is going to be pretty much inundated for the next couple of hours. So if you're traveling anywhere from like Greater Cleveland down I-77, hopefully we'll get a lot of these at least roadways not as flooded, but the threat is still there for that morning rush tomorrow of some flooding concerns. So maybe we want to get that alarm clock set a little bit earlier than you actually will potentially get up, because there could be some delays with some of this travel for the start of the day tomorrow especially. Let's see here. Power out in Massillon. Oh, yeah, I would not be surprised to maybe hear a few power outages with some of these heavier rains. Not a lot of wind per se causing those powers to at least go out, but still some rain chances and some rumbles of thunder. So lightning still could potentially drop some of those lightning or those power lines down. So still a lot of lightning, at least concentrated around Brunswick, down into Lafayette. A little bit less of that thunder right now in Lorain and just off the shore of Sandusky. Still a pretty good lightning show to round out this evening. So as far as the rain is concerned, a little bit more general rain across parts of Wayne County down into Ashland. So you're good to go. If you're watching from those counties, you'll definitely be able to get to some sleep without any problems. Getting pretty windy in Cuyahoga Falls. Yeah, those winds are probably picking up a little bit, so we're not necessarily seeing a lot of strong winds, but the threat is there for maybe a few more stronger gusts close to 30, maybe 40 miles per hour. It's kind of, yep, closer to 30. 30 miles an hour. Folks, I'm not really seeing a lot of at least intense winds on the radar right now. There could be a few more at least aloft, closer to 40, maybe 50-mile-per-hour winds, but I think most of the area definitely going to be a little bit more under severe limits, but the heavy rain is going to be the biggest concern for a lot of the area for the latter half of this evening. Let's see here. So we've got some power outages now in Lorain. Unfortunately, yes, some of those at least power outages are starting to pop back up. Let's see if we can find, let's see here, if I can pop, let's see if I have that in my show here. Nope, I've got to find that one, sorry. Okay, so let's see if we can find power outages here. Let's see, so several hundred around parts of Geauga into Lake County, maybe as much as 3,500 being reported right now in Ashland County, about 100 in Lorain, and maybe nearly 4,000 as we get into Cuyahoga County with some power outages right now. So yeah, definitely seeing some at least issues for at least electricity here in Northeast Ohio within the next couple of hours with some of these storms that are moving into the region right now. So still one severe thunderstorm warning for Medina County, which does include central parts of Summit County, most of Cuyahoga County, also into Lorain County until about 1:45 this morning. I'm not really seeing a lot of issues per se with some very strong winds. This storm will probably be at least a little bit more below severe limits for most of the area, but there could be a gust of wind or two between about 50 and 60 miles per hour at any given time. So I think that's probably what the National Weather Service is kind of thinking with this actual thunderstorm. And look at that. We've actually dropped most of the warning now for Medina County. So we're good to go there. Towards the north, there could be a couple more stronger winds, but they're definitely trimming this at least polygon right now. So most of the wind, I think, is kind of at least mostly below severe limits, but there could be a pocket or two maybe getting close to 60 miles per hour in at least a few instances later this evening. Let's see here. Starting to hear some thunder in Cleveland and a little bit more gloomy and dark. So yeah, those thunderstorms kind of making more of an advance further northward over the next hour or so. Okay, so they continue that warning. They did trim it. Still some 60-mile-per-hour gust of possibility as this storm is still moving at about, let's see here, about 45 miles per hour. So it's kind of picking up speed a little bit. So the potential for some at least stronger, at least movement. And, you know, we're picking up between about 40 and 50-mile-per-hour gusts in a few locations. So, yeah, that's getting close to about 60. So the at least potential will be there for maybe a few more damaging wind gusts in a couple locations, but I'm not anticipating a lot of widespread damage by any stretch. So you might have the power flicker, maybe it does go out over the next hour or so in parts of at least northern Summit County and parts of Cuyahoga County, maybe seeing some more power issues within the next couple of hours, but I think a lot of the heavy rain with some flooding will be the biggest concern here in the area as we do round out the evening hours into the overnight tonight, especially the further south of the at least Route 30 corridor this evening. Okay, so the flood watch, yeah, we're going to continue those flooding concerns at least for the next 24 to 36 hours with more rain, unfortunately, on the way. So let's take a look here. So we have a lot more flooding concerns. We still have that severe thunderstorm watch for probably the next 40 or so minutes for our western communities, but you'll notice a lot of it slowly making its way out of the at least forecast in and around parts of Indiana into western Ohio. So yeah, we're going to see a lot of this kind of quieting down within the next half hour or so, but I think flooding is going to be a bigger issue. You notice a lot more of those green counties in and around I-77 that is flood watching, so we'll be at least inundated with some more of those rain and flooding concerns within the next 24 to 36 hours as more of this steady and more heavy rain, unfortunately, going to be a big issue late this evening. So that threat for some heavier downpours is going to continue for the next couple of hours before we get a bit of a break late this evening. So right now the lightning kind of going down a little bit. A little bit more of that lightning towards the south around Carroll County. just to the south of Alliance, moving into parts of the I-77 corridor around Uricksville, but points west, a little bit less lightning around Millersburg into Worcester, Canaan, and a little bit more of that, at least just kind of general rain moving into our western communities especially. But overall, I think the threat for severe weather is starting to at least lessen even more, and we still have that severe thunderstorm warning for probably another 20 or so minutes before we can finally say goodbye to that one, as this thunderstorm continues to show signs of a little more weakening here in at least Medina County. The at least polygon has been trimmed a little bit, so Brunswick to Strongsville, Parma to Greater Cleveland, maybe into Twinsburg and Hudson. A couple of maybe stronger winds. Cuyahoga Falls probably seeing a little bit more heavy rain than anything, and then down into central parts of Stark County, a little bit more of that rain towards Ravenna and Rootstown. Not quite into the rain just yet, but we'll be talking some more of that rain within the next 20 or so minutes for most of the Cuyahoga and Summit County area late this evening. All right. Okay, let's see here. What else do we have going on here? Okay, flood advisory now in place for Erie County, and that one goes through about 4:30 in the morning. So yeah, still that potential for some flooding, even though a lot of that rain is kind of moving out of the area. Still a lot of residual problems from the very, very heavy rains we've seen over the last hour or so. Early estimates about 4 inches of rain in parts of at least the central half of Erie and maybe even in Huron County over the last hour or so. So definitely some very big rains in our western communities so far today, and that threat will be at least lessening a little bit in the next hour or two, but still a lot of rain. As we take a look at our national radar in and around Ohio, but there's not much else going on north and west. So if we are going to believe our computer model guidance, which I showed earlier, I can kind of pick that back up again. You'll notice there's not a lot of issues going on around Wisconsin to Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, despite models kind of showing that threat for a little bit more rain to begin tomorrow morning. So let's kind of take a look at, let's see here. Okay, so we can change that over to the latest model here. Okay, so we still have our frontal boundary kind of draped across the southern half of the Great Lakes, and we're still looking at that potential for some storms developing maybe closer to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But as I showed you earlier, there wasn't a lot of activity in southern parts of Wisconsin, or for that matter, northern parts of Illinois. So the model kind of suggesting the potential for some more storms, at least building back up in the western half of the Great Lakes. And as we take this forward, we'll see that threat. I think this is really kind of overdoing things as we get into the latter half of tonight and early tomorrow morning. So this might not actually be a big concern. We'll have to keep an eye on it. You'll definitely want to stay more weather aware, but there's really not a lot going on as we speak in southern parts of Wisconsin and northern parts of Illinois. And we're still, about a half hour away from where the model kind of thinks things are going to be. But if I at least trust my gut, I don't think we'll see a lot of at least heavy rain to begin the morning. But the chance will still be there for a few more showers and maybe some rumbles of thunder. And then once we get into the latter half of the afternoon, I think this wave is going to be the bigger concern for those strong to severe storms once again. So the latter half of the afternoon, we'll definitely have to keep a very close eye on things for the end of the day Tuesday through the wee hours of Wednesday morning. So we might be back here 24 hours from now talking more potential of some stronger storms in and around northeast Ohio with these potential damaging wind gusts being the primary concern once again as we get into the end of the day on Tuesday. So models kind of showing between about 5, maybe 6 o'clock, some of those storms pushing further and further into Indiana and also into Ohio. And then once we get into the latter half of the evening, we'll be talking more of those storms pushing back into northeast Ohio, and hopefully things quieting down as this front kind of finally pushes further southward. But there might even be a few more storms on Wednesday, hopefully not nearly as potent as they will be over the next 24 hours. But overall, the threat will still be a little bit more rain and maybe some rumbles of thunder. But all this is very much subject to change. One model does not rule them all. So we have to look at things very, very closely, and we'll have to keep an eye on things between now and early tomorrow morning. So we'll have to keep a very close eye on this, and you definitely want to stay a little bit more weather aware than you normally would on a typical day here in Northeast Ohio. So the threat for some stronger storms, yeah, they're dropping the severe, at least, criteria as I anticipated as well. So we have at least a threat for maybe some stronger winds in around parts of Portage County till about 2 a.m. for that particular, at least, area from about southern parts of Solon towards Twinsburg into parts of Ravenna, just to the region of Parkman. So there could be some stronger winds, 40 miles per hour, but I think most of us will start to quiet down once we get past about 2, 3 o'clock into the wee hours of your Tuesday morning. So the winds definitely a little bit feisty from time to time. I think about 30, maybe 40 miles per hour at most, but this severe criteria I think is getting less and less of a problem for most of the greater Cleveland area. Some heavy rain, some frequent lightning will be a possibility, but I'm not anticipating much more than that for the next few hours. So definitely some good news there into the next hour or so. So we'll still maybe contend with a little bit more 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts at times, but not really seeing a lot of that, at least lightning and thunder continuing for the entire overnight hours, as most of that lightning kind of dissipating the further south and west of this main line. So Worcester, good to go. Shreve, Ashland, Mansfield, Norwalk, you're good to go. Get some sleep. Oberlin, Lafayette, towards Brunswick, maybe a little bit of thunder kind of keeping you awake. But overall, things are improving greatly. So the further south and east you are of Akron, still some decent rumbles of thunder out there. But a lot of this thunder is just going to be kind of general issues, not really anything major to worry about. So just, I think a lot of folks will be able to get to bed pretty easily tonight once we get through most of the thunder. I don't see a lot of wind per se, maybe a 20 or 30 mile per hour gust in a couple locations, but overall severe limits are starting to get lower and lower with the potential of some stronger storms moving into parts of greater Cleveland right now. Some heavier downpours will be a possibility as that threat is lessening considerably here in Northeast Ohio. So some good news there with these storms. And we'll stick around at least until the severe thunderstorm warning is completely out of here in about 15 or so minutes. And we'll be talking a little bit more rain than anything. So I think a lot of folks probably will be able to get to bed without any problems tonight. And we'll be talking a little bit more rain than anything across Northeast Ohio right now. Yeah, rain in Lakewood is probably going to be a good bet within the next half hour or so. I don't see a lot of at least thunder as the lightning kind of going down right now across parts of Cuyahoga County, but there could be a few good rumbles of thunder in and around the Westlake area and Lakewood, so you will maybe be woken up a couple times if you're at least prone to maybe hearing some of that thunder, but I don't think you'll have anything really to worry about as far as any wind with these winds starting to die down, thankfully, here in and around parts of western Cuyahoga County. So good to go in Lakewood. Let's see here. Boardman, Ohio, up towards the eastern half of the state. We're looking at a little bit more of that rain, some rumbles of thunder out there, but I don't see anything particularly worrisome. There'll be maybe some heavier downpours during the second half of the overnights and nights with maybe a few more rumbles of thunder, but you should be good to go. You really aren't anticipating much more than that with some very heavy rains as we get into the latter half of tonight. Lisa, thank you very much. Glad to be of service. We're always here to kind of keep you guys safe and making sure you kind of know what's going on, because I know weather can be kind of at least an exciting experience, but also a little more scary for some folks. We just want to let you know, hey, there's a severe thunderstorm warning, but it's not as concerning as it actually is. So lots and lots of folks going to be a little bit more, at least restful with those sleeps this evening, as that potential will be a little bit more just some general rain. So hopefully a lot of folks will be able to get some sleep tonight without having too many worries here in Northeast Ohio. Let's see here. Very welcome, very welcome. Okay, we got some rumbles going on in Brook Park, and yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for the latter half of the overnight tonight. Some more rumbles of thunder, maybe a few more heavy downpours out there, but we're really not going to see too much more than that here in Northeast Ohio. Cuyahoga Falls, looking at that threat for a little bit more in the way of some rain, maybe a few more rumbles of thunder before about 3, 4 o'clock today. But overall, things are just kind of generally raining rather than actually anything severe. So you're still kind of under that severe thunderstorm warning right now, but things are definitely getting much more, at least calm, with any of those actual winds across northeast Ohio. Lorain County, you're good to go. If you are able to get some sleep tonight with a few more of those rumbles of thunder, no problems there. Not anticipating anything else as far as any severe weather, but we'll maybe hear a few more rumbles of thunder for Lorain County into probably the next half hour to 45 minutes before things start to calm down there as well. So good to go here in northeast Ohio. Let's see here. Parma, we got some lightning and thunder and some windy conditions starting to make an appearance. Yeah, there might be some 20, 30 mile per hour winds in and around central parts of Parma towards Berea, around Strongsville, but you'll notice there's not a lot of intense lightning, so that indicates the storm is kind of weakening as it gets closer and closer to downtown Cleveland, and that severe thunderstorm warning will continue to be dropping off as we get into the end of this evening. Barberton, lightning show going on in Summit County. Yeah, wouldn't be surprised there for a few more rumbles of thunder in the next 20 or so minutes before things do calm down once again. And we'll be talking just some general rain for the latter half of this evening. We still have that at least special weather statement kind of tacked on to the extreme eastern half of this line, meaning that we'll potentially maybe see some 20, maybe 30 mile per hour gusts with some of these winds, but really not too much else to worry about throughout the next couple of hours. A couple of at least storms. We don't control the weather, no matter how much we think we do. The only thing I can do is look at a radar. That's about the extent of my at least powers over the weather here in northeast Ohio. I wish I could bring a lot more sunny days as I've not golfed this year. So hopefully I'll be able to get out in a couple weeks with some of that rain moving out of here hopefully by the end of this week. Lots and lots of thunder and lightning in Amherst. Yeah, those thunders probably getting a little bit more at least continuous within the last few minutes in parts of Amherst right now, and we're going to be talking probably a little bit more steady rain within the next 20 or so minutes before things start to quiet down once again. But overall, the threat is definitely lessening for that thunder within the next half hour to 45 minutes in our western communities, and that threat for severe weather really starting to go down across most, if not all, of northeast Ohio right now. So I think a lot of us be able to go to bed without many problems, and we'll be talking at least some heavier downpours, so that morning commute could be a little bit more tricky here in northeast Ohio to start off the day on Tuesday, but not anticipating much more severe weather for the overnight hours as we get into the end of this week. So let's see here. Let's see. Thunder in Mahoning County. We're looking at some rain and thunder finally making its way eastward into parts of our at least extreme eastern communities around Youngstown towards the Warren area. Just starting to see some of that rain and looking at some very decent thunder around Alliance and Carroll County around Augusta. Paris is definitely going to be a little bit more inundated with some heavier downpours, but this is pretty much it. A lot of that rain is going to be moving into Pennsylvania as far as the heaviest and also the most lightning, and once we get past all that, things will definitely be much, much quieter and a little bit more relaxing with some of those raindrops kind of falling on the roof rather than a lot of thunder here in northeast Ohio. Let's see here. Mingo Junction getting some very heavy rain and a lot of lightning for the end of the 12 or the 1 o'clock hour right now. A little bit more of that rain going to be a big issue, but overall things are going to be a little bit more at least quiet once we get past at least the 1:30 into the 2 o'clock hour for most areas, and a lot of these raindrops are kind of at least fading out here in northeast Ohio. So we'll be on for another about 10 or so minutes as long as this severe thunderstorm warning is expired, and we'll be looking at some just general raindrops for the latter half of the overnight tonight. So that is some good news there. And let's see, we got that special weather statement till about 2 o'clock into the area. Let's see here. All right, so we got a little bit more time before we can say goodbye to that severe thunderstorm warning, but my goodness, the flooding, just unbelievable. I've never seen this many flash flood warnings kind of in a row, all the way from parts of at least southern halves of the Tuscarawas area into most of the I-70 corridor, especially east of Columbus right now, and still a lot of flooding issues all the way down into nearly Parkersburg, West Virginia, with some of those very heavy downpours. So if you're traveling anywhere south of Dover during the morning tomorrow, it's going to be a little more of a hectic drive for most folks, as these heavy raindrops still a big issue for the end of this evening. Yeah, you and me both. Yeah, hopefully this warning ends for real this time. We thought we were close the last time, but yeah, we're looking at that warning for another about 6-7 minutes. We'll hopefully see that end to that, because they've only got the special weather statement in. So my gut tells me they'll probably let that one expire, and we'll not have to worry too much more about any of that severe weather here this evening. Thunder is loud and a little windy as we get into Parma right now, as those storms starting to make an appearance. We're looking at some thunder just to your south, especially around Strongsville into Brunswick. That is the majority of the lightning right now, and you're hearing that several miles away around Parma, and the lightning is still a big issue, especially around Alliance, Augusta, in and around Carroll as well. So we're looking at a lot more of these, at least thunderclaps kind of being the bigger concern rather than actual windy conditions. So once we get past, I think, probably the next hour or so, I think a lot of our eastern communities will finally see some quieter weather, and we'll be able to get some at least hopeful solid sleep. But areas to the west of I-77 from Canton to Worcester, Mansfield, just some quieter weather out there. But the flooding, I think, will still be a bigger concern once we get into the first half of the morning tomorrow, with some of these flash flood warnings still in place for parts of Erie County especially. And we're also looking at a little more of those flood advisories for Ashland and Richland County for at least the next couple of hours, with some very heavy rains still at least in the area of Mansfield towards the at least Route 30 corridor into Canton. So still a threat for some heavier downpours for the latter half of the overnight tonight. And then once we get past all that, I think we'll quiet down for the start of the morning tomorrow, but still a chance for maybe a few more stronger storms in the forecast in and around parts of northeast Ohio on Tuesday here in northeast Ohio. Flashing boxes, we got several of them. So right now, the one that we have here in Greater Cleveland is the severe thunderstorm warning, which will be at least decommissioned in the next 5 or so minutes. That is one of our polygons. And then the flashing boxes off towards the south are more flooding concerns. That is a flash flood emergency, which I have not seen actually on our radar before. So that is around Perry County. So that is certainly not good news there. That is the first time I've actually seen an emergency flash flood warning. So that's actually not really good news at all for around the Crooksville area into central Perry County. And we also have that at least box kind of flashing off towards the west, an aerial flood warning just to the south of at least Kenton and around Harding, outside of our viewing area in through western Ohio. So those are kind of the flash flood warnings and all those issues that we kind of see. So the flashing kind of draws our attention to those warnings a little bit more than just a standard box. So the at least red boxes are traditional flash flood warnings. The at least blue flashing box is that emergency flash flood warning down in Perry County. So, oh my goodness, yeah, a lot of those potentials for at least the threat of some stronger storms late this evening. Let's see here. Still hearing some thunder in West Salem right now. Yeah, you're probably going to see maybe a little bit more lightning in the distant sky. You're not necessarily seeing any of that lightning necessarily close to West Salem, but just some general rain. You may hear a few rumbles of thunder in the distance, but lightning is definitely going down the further west you are of at least I-77. So there will be a few more rumbles of thunder here in northeast Ohio. Let's see, a couple more minutes until we can say goodbye to that warning. Right now, thankfully, it's good news. Not seeing any more indication of seeing a lot more severe weather here in northeast Ohio this evening. So let's kind of take a look at chance. Nope, there's no indication of any more warnings on that one. Let's see here. So that is set to expire at 1:45. So yeah, some good news there. Storm is continually starting to weaken, and we'll be able to at least say goodbye to that severe thunderstorm within the next couple of minutes. So a lot of those, at least thunderstorms, just kind of general rain. So we're really not dealing with too much more than that within the next couple of hours. And I think a lot of this rain will be pretty much out of here once we get closer to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're going to be able to get some sleep tonight without many problems. But we might be doing all this again tomorrow night with a threat for more severe weather here in northeast Ohio once again for the day tomorrow. So a lot of those folks will definitely need to keep in mind more potential of severe weather tomorrow. You're good to go. Red Ghost, go to sleep. No problems. We're not going to see anything other than maybe some thunder. Unfortunately, if you're not able to get some sleep with thunder, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more before we start to get those quieter weathers, or quieter at least conditions, moving into most of the area. But still some lightning out there, keeping things a bit more noisy, but overall just some moderate rain to maybe a little more of a heavy downpour at times, going to be the bigger concern for the rest of the overnight tonight. So I think a lot of folks will be able to get some sleep out there during the overnight tonight into the morning tomorrow. So we'll at least be on for another couple minutes here. Let's see here. And let's kind of see what we got here. Okay, just checking a few things there, and we're looking at that threat for a little bit more in the way of rain for the end of this evening. Okay. 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 Alrighty, so we're looking at that storm to be expiring in the next, yep, there we go. So that severe thunderstorm warning has expired right now. We're looking at a little bit more rain, some heavy rain, a possibility for the rest of the overnight tonight in a couple locations, a little bit more frequent lightning. But overall, the severe risk has definitely gone down and completely ended for most areas. So we're definitely going to be looking at some quieter weather late tonight. So I'll be ending the stream right now. And we'll be looking at that threat for maybe a little bit more rain before dawn tomorrow. So give yourself a little bit of extra time if you are going to be traveling early in the day on Tuesday. Other than that, have a great night, get some sleep, and we'll be talking again tomorrow. Hopefully not too much severe weather to talk about on Tuesday, but we want to stay tuned and stay weather aware for the end of this week.